how much are you investing in your employees? It was the customer's always right, focus on customer satisfaction, but it seems like that's backwards. But if you make sure that they're happy, then you've got a better chance they're going to treat your customers well and represent you when they are out.
Hello, I'm David Kain, host of the Kain Friends podcast, where we ask our guests to share thoughts and ideas on the automotive industry with a focus on helping our viewers improve their business. Our guest today is Nicole Denoyer, the general manager of Denoyer Chevrolet in Holland, Michigan. Denoyer Chevrolet has spanned 4 generations as a family owned and operated dealership. From the early days when her grandfather and father ran the business to today, where Nicole and her brother Dominique operate the dealership. They've always been focused on offering exceptional automotive support to their community. What I'm going to do now is bring Nicole onto the screen, and she'll be able to tell us a lot more about the Denoyer Chevrolet family. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Thanks for asking me. I've always enjoyed talking with you, learning from you, and working with you. So it's an honor. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I am fourth generation. This is the only place I have ever worked, which is not a highlight. And I have 2 kids who are 17 and 19 who are working elsewhere. But my son, who's 19, is actually going to just start helping us with some internet leads. So yeah, right now it's my brother and I, and he does a lot of the fixed operations. I do a lot of the sales and finance, but we're working together, and we've realized with some really good psychology and therapy that working together is better than trying to each do our own thing. But it's fun. I really enjoy the car business, and I've been managing since 1999, and I still look forward to going to work every day. So
A great experience. So, Nicole, the nice thing about being in a family dealership is the ability to work with someone who and implicitly trust where you're going with the business. Let's talk just a little bit about what that's like, and even in the early days, how your community would approach you, even when you weren't the general manager, because you were the owner's kid.
yeah. So do you mean like how did our community respond to the fact that we're a family business in the area?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And did they have a higher expectation of you because of your last name?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the community, we still have that old, like, you've got wings, and we had these huge yellow letters on top of the dealership that spelled out Denoyer on both sides and are right in the highway. So, I mean, you'd go to school and you'd say your last name, and everyone was like, oh, you're from Denoyer Chevrolet. But I think, good news, bad news. For a while, we were called Destroyer Chevrolet because one of our body shops took a sledgehammer and took off somebody's side view mirror. So, you live down all those legacies of the good and the bad. But I think overall, my parents and my grandparents have been really involved in the community. And I think it's important that they recognize that, yes, you're running a business, but you're also giving back. And we're in a smaller town. I think that really makes a difference. Coming into the dealership with the last name of Denoyer, you definitely, I don't think I realized as much as I should have, but everyone's watching you, right? So
Yeah.
you got to be better. You've got to work harder. And when you make mistakes, I feel like they last longer. So how do you live with that? And I mean, I even keep telling my son, like, when you walk in to say hi to me, you got to know at 6'4" right now, everyone's watching you walk in that door just to say hi to me because they're looking at like, how are you presenting yourself? And if you were going to work here with them, and I think a lot of it is what's the leadership going to be like? So if they're used to my grandpa and then it was my dad and now it's my brother and I, and we're not going anywhere for a while, but what does that next generation look like? And it's just a lot of expectations, but with it, a lot of opportunity. And I think for me, it's important that I always remember and my kids remember that it is an opportunity and, you need to be grateful for that.
Yeah, so being a dealer's kid myself, you and I both can relate to the PhD. Papa has a dealership, or the went to one sales training. They said, "Oh, you're a GIM," and I was like, "I'm the GM," and he goes, "No, you're the dealer's kid, so you've got it made." And that was like, well, you know,
Yeah.
I will tell you, there might be some remnants of that reputation that dealers' kids don't work hard, but I think you can dispute that pretty clearly.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you start, right? You've got to prove that you're better. You've got to know that what I mean, you've got to be good at your job if you want to lead people. I mean, it's 24/7, right? Whereas I think some people get to go home and you get to check out. I'm always thinking about work. I mean, and I think I really enjoy exercising because it lets me process what I've been thinking about it and really for me take it down a notch. So maybe it's a little healthier when I have the conversation. But yeah, I mean, when you own your own business, but especially a car business because you've got sales, you've got service. I mean, my son was telling me yesterday that he was fitting someone for shoes and he asked how her day was going. She's like, "Well, not very good. I just got my oil changed and they chipped my car while it was there." And he was like, "I didn't want to ask." And I said, "Where was it?" She's like, "Denoyer Chevrolet." Any of that, right? I mean, all of it. Like your name's public and you want to be able to be proud of your dealership when you go into a store or see some on the street. And that means you've got to make sure people have a good experience and make sure your employees are happy. I mean, you got a lot of things on your plate.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to divert just a little bit in our conversation because you reminded me of our technicians at our family store would go to the grocery store. They go to movies wearing their uniforms. So it's not just you that's guarding the reputation of Denoyer, but you've got to create this culture of a team that wears it as well. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that when I was looking at some of the questions, but I really do, and even joining the 20 group we're in right now, it's top down, right? So how do you treat your employees? And if you treat your employees well, then they're going to treat your customers well. And if you're treating your employees well, they're probably going to be happier and a better representation of you when they are with their families or with their friends, or less likely to talk negatively about the dealership or where they work. So I really think it's how much are you investing in your employees, and I think when I started, it was the customer's always right and, focus on customer satisfaction. But it seems like that's backwards. If you don't focus on making sure your employees are happy within reason, I mean, I think I can get a little too emotionally involved. But if you make sure that they're happy, then you've got a better chance they're going to treat your customers well and represent you when they are out.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We spend as dealers just an inordinate amount of time on marketing to tell people how great we are. Let's talk about what it's like to buy from Denoyer and some of the messaging that you all like to put out in the community.
Yeah, you were really good. I mean, when you first started working with us, when I realized we had a problem, other dealers were doing well, we weren't. And it was like, oh, our internet lead response time is 2.5 hours. And I remember Steve Bachman, I was at a 20 group meeting and I was asking the other dealers what their response time was. And he came and gave me a note and it says 4.5 minutes. We work with David Kane, right? So, like when and you started coming on internet leads, but also you looked at our process and we were an APB store for a really long period of time. And I think it matched who I was in an early age too, because you don't know what you're doing. So you're trying to hang on to something, but we were process driven. It was like, you are going to be part of this process and this is how we do it. And you said you get like a 9 or 10 in technicality and like a 2 on artistry. So as we thought about that, and COVID hit around the same time, but we came up with the organic slogan of we make it easy. And I think that's the goal of like, hey, our job, number one, when you're buying a car is to help you make a selection. And then two, to make it easy to purchase the vehicle, whether we're bringing it to your house or we're bringing it out of state or we're working with you in the financing. We want it to be a good experience and we want to make it easy. So that's, I think, in general, the way we want to like work with customers. We want this to be a good experience. We don't want to feel like you're having to like be here for 2 to 4 hours and it's, you're just stuck buying a car. Like, we want this to be enjoyable.
Yeah, and along those lines, you're all too familiar with the morning heat cases, right? And you wake up, you're feeling great, you exercise, you're going into work. It's going to be a wonderful day. The sun is shining, and then you end up with a heat case. Let's talk a little bit about what you all do to mitigate against that, because the best solution to heat cases is great processes and a really well oiled machine in the service department.
Yeah, I mean, I think what, you've introduced us to Rich, who helps us fix operations, and then Bruce with NCM, who's helping us with our sales process. But a lot of it is And that was a change. You got to get here before we open. So we may open at 7:30, but you got to be here. The techs and the advisors need to be here at 7:15. You've got to have a meeting, right? You need to know what's on your plate. We made that same change in sales. So if we open at 9, everyone's here at 8:45, and you're reviewing what you've got for the day, right? Who do we have coming in, whether it's in service, what do we have in sales, the deals from yesterday, people that responded overnight. You've just got to set up your day so that you know what's in front of you. And then you can take the stuff that comes in. But if you don't handle either, like I think in service, what do we have going on today? What does our schedule look like? And in sales, who responded to us last night? How do we handle the leads from yesterday? And then what are we going to do going forward? How many appointments can we make for today? And honestly, as David Long taught us, like tomorrow and the next day, right? You want to be 2, 3, 4 days out for your appointments, not just today and tomorrow.
You can pretty much predict your future by your appointments
Yep.
and know what good things are coming. So let's talk about successes. So you all have got a long storied history. Some of the great things that happen, you just heard about. Sitting at the table with your father and your grandfather, but you and Dom are now entrusted with the responsibility. Are there any successes that you'd like to kinda call out?
Yeah, I mean, I think first, like we had a good service department, but it was a little disorganized and probably like I think a frustration for the sales department. If we work really hard to sell these customers and they come in and if they don't have a good experience in service, we're not going to get them back. So Dom worked with Rich, who you recommended that um, we talked to, and he's really given us a structure and service so that now not only is it a better experience for the customer and a better interaction with the dealership, but it's also we're turning more hours. So I mean, when we started, I remember him telling us like, for the number of techs you have, which is like 13 to 15, first you should be able to turn 1,600 hours, but my goal for you is like 2,200 to 24. And my brother's like, we're never going to hit that. But now we're turning like we've had a couple months where we've turned over 2,400 hours, but we're also consistent. It's not 1 month we're good and 1 month we're bad. Like they've figured out, it took them a year and a half to 2 years, but a really strong process. We got the right techs in. We're not losing people. So you have a brand new team every 3 to 6 months. So I think our consistency in service, the team that we have, keeping the same team has been fantastic. I'm also really excited because the one of our best techs we hired, I was getting my hair done. My hairdresser told me that her brother is a technician. I was like, really, we need a technician. And she texted him and I texted my brother and they met a few days later and we hired him and he's one of our top techs. So a lot of it is, you find people in some great ways. But I also think, changing from APB to doing more of a digital friendly, like for today's customer process, working on our internet lead closing percentage. I mean, we were stuck as a dealership at like 8 to 10% for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And last May, I involved the managers of bonus. But we take after our leads ourselves. We don't use AI. So finding that balance of how do we not burn our team out, but yet for reasonable up until 8:30, 9 o'clock, we're going to take these leads 5 o'clock on a weekend. Um, and David Long told us last week that for the month of May, we were the highest internet lead close of all the dealership he consults with. And our overall closing percentage was 19.8%. So, I mean, coming from 8 to 9%, that's a 10% jump in over a year, and we're consistently between probably 16 and 18% every month. So that's been a really big success story. That's something we've worked on for a long time.
Yeah, and your customers like you, they're loyal, and it makes all the difference in the world. So let's talk about your role in the industry as a woman. And when I met you, I walked into a 20 group, and there's 18 men and 2 women, whatever the count was at that time. But you immediately were like, I get it. I want to do digital. I want to go beyond that. What what can you share with our listeners or our audience what you've had to overcome and some of the things that you're proud of that the industry has either provided for you or you've had to kind of elbow your way into?
Yeah, I mean, I remember being at a 20 group meeting, and I mean, my grandpa was in the first 20 group that we were part of. We're now in another one with NCM, but so we'd been a member of this group for a long time, and we had a member candidate, and my brother and I were, you're grabbing a drink before dinner, and My brother's telling him what he does, and then he looks at me and he's like, "Oh, what do you do? Are you a secretary there?" My brother was like trying to block him before I could reach out and punch him. But yeah, I mean, I think the expectation of, I said in another meeting where it was like, if you're going to pass on your dealership, it goes to your son, and your wives and daughters just get the inheritance. So it's still really male dominated. I'm still one of two women in a 20 group. And that's, I mean, I started when I was right out of college and now I'm 50. So that's a long time. I appreciate the women that I do meet that have been in the business for a while. So some of it's through NCM, like with Jennifer, the Subaru general manager, or Brandis, who's been in, part of NCM for a while. They're strong women and they're really capable. And I don't, you know, I don't feel like it's the men in my 20 group necessarily treat me differently. Most of them, they just want members who are smart and care, right? So that seems like it's better. It's just, I think if you're going to have a good experience for your customer base, or if you want other women to come in the dealership, like, you do need diversity. And for whatever reason, most dealers, you don't have a very diversive group of dealers yet. So I hope that continues to change. I even thought about trying to do something where I get the local schools, because we have a woman office manager, a woman parts manager, a woman service manager, a lead finance manager woman, and myself. Like, could we get some girls in high school or college who aren't maybe considering the car business to come in and do like a roundtable lunch and just expose? But
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of community outreach is what you guys are known for, and I think that's wonderful. So let's talk about the challenges of the future. So technology and having a good platform partner, whether it's your DMS, your CRM, how important is all of that to your success? And do you have any shout outs for any of the companies that you work with?
yeah, I mean, I really think that Drive Centric, you introduced us to them. And I think, they had dealers invest in that CRM. And you can tell, like, if you don't have something that can help your salespeople manage who they're talking to and what tasks they need, and the managers can go and look at it. And I mean, whenever I need a report, like, how many outbound activities are we doing? And is it phone, internet, email? Like, they can customize whatever you need. If you don't, you got to know what you need. But if you don't have that, I think you're gonna get lost. I mean, you're gonna lose track of who you're supposed to be reaching out to. And customers, I would say even more today, it seems like they're not necessarily buying in 3 to 5 days, right? I mean, you get that 30, 60, 90-day customer, but as long as they didn't opt out of your texting, they still want you to reach out to them in a strategic and different way. But that really help if you were trying to do that on like a piece of paper, you would lose track of all your customers. I mean, I think of like when I first started, we had like our hot prospects and they were in a folder in your desk, right? You bought that folder. So just, I really appreciate Drive Centric. Their customer service is great. The product they have is great. And I think TechHand's a really good DMS um, that we've appreciated. And, JM&A works well with both of those. Making sure that our finance numbers are accurate, and how does that integrate with Techion so that we can get an active finance report. So I think all that matters. If you don't, the numbers don't lie. And if you're not looking at accurate numbers, you got a problem.
Yeah, and speaking of numbers, each month you get your composite from NCM, and you've got a really good moderator for your group, Colin, who does a great job. And you could teach how to read the composite, and every time I talk to you, you're like, well, we were number one in the 20 group, or we were number two, and all that matters. So let's talk about that's your report card, which is a compilation of all of your team members. How do you get your culture of accountability to work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had to be careful that it's like I was always showing our team, like, here's the 20 group report. We're not number one. Let's look at why not. And it was like, no one wants to look at that, right? So using it and trying to help even NCM, and I appreciate being on their advisory board, like, how do you make this something that your managers want to look at? And right now, I mean, I have my used car managers, like, I'd really like to see that report. How do we compare to other used car dealers? Like, what's the benchmark? And some of that is just hiring the right people and fostering it. But if it's important to them that we finish number one, right? There's not even a bonus tied to it, but it's the pride that my dad always said to me, you really need to be number one or above the benchmark in each department, right? You can't look at that as wearing you in the first page. If you're going to be good in the first page, you got to be good in every department. So I think that helps us maintain accountability because you're looking at each department and making sure that if they're not above the benchmark, why not? And then that gives you like something specific to have a conversation with the manager about, not just you're not doing a good job, do better.
Yeah, and accountability fosters this employee development concept. You guys grow your own talent to a large degree. Let's talk about what that employee development strategy is all about.
Yeah, I mean, we do personality assessments. So I think that's really helped us make sure we haven't hired the wrong candidate. You've got to be motivated to be in the car business. We can't have to motivate you. But if the assessment's accurate, then, we do want to promote from within. So I think communication's a big deal in coaching, right? So what type of coach are you going to be? And how am I communicating with my leadership team? And then how are they communicating with the sales team? And I think the car business can be stressful. So for me, I really appreciate having a psychologist, and I brought that person he interviews my leadership team individually. We meet off site a few weeks later, and we really work on how can we be better at our job? How can we work better with each other? But then how can you be better coaches? And trying to make sure that, yeah, like when you walk through the door, like a Bill Belichick thing, like, hey, you're here to do your job, leave all the other stuff behind. Sometimes that's harder than others, but I think when people feel like you do care about them and you want them to grow and you want them to get better, that makes them want to stay. I mean, when we're hiring, like I'm trying to hire more salespeople right now, but it's with the intent of like, if you're good and you like this, we'd like to move you to a management position. That we want to grow you.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I want to make sure that I give them a shout out, Andy and Evan and Justin, and watching them develop. And in the years that I've known you all and worked with you, they got to be a point of pride for you because they stick with you, through COVID, chip shortage, economics, upward and downward. There's a lot to be said for that kind of persistence and hiring people the right way, but also raising them to the realities that it's not always going to be easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think trying to like right now, it feels like there's a lot of uncertainty, right? So even how we look at their pay, can we give them some extra bonuses because it feels like we're working harder to make less money. So long term, how do you make sure your really good people hang in there with you? I mean, and Andy's been with us for over 21 years. Evan's been here 12, and Justin's my newest manager, and he's been with us for 5 years. But when people know that you do want them to grow, you're not just expecting them to stay static and this is your role, you're just the new car manager, like stay in your lane, right? Like we keep trying to become better. So what does that look like? And what does it look like to grow? And but then also the pay's got to be there. I mean, if you're not paying your employees well, they're not going to stay in this business because it's really hard.
Yeah, there's no question. I think you would freak people out if you talked about some of the things that you all have tried with the 4-day work weeks and letting them have some time off. Those are not consistent across the industry. Why are you brave enough to try some of those stimulants, if you will?
Yeah, I think like if I want 120% effort, right? And if you want 120% effort, that gets to be pretty hard if you're doing it 5 days a week, especially as a finance manager if you're going to stay late and sign the customer up because you do spot delivery. So we felt like instead of rotating through a lot of people and burning everyone out, I mean, looking at Andy, who's been here 21 years, like what he can do because he's been here that long and the knowledge that he has, right? And if you lose that, so I think it really lets people stay in the business longer. I think it allows them to be happier and have that work life balance. But also, we're probably one of the few dealers that makes our employees take after our leads as opposed to using AI. Now, we close a lot earlier. So I think I had to remind them of, yes, we don't use AI because we're not open from 9:30 to 8, 6 days a week, right? We close some nights at 5:30 or 7 as a late night. So
Yeah.
we can do the 4-day work week and we want to make sure you have balance. But then there is the expectation that we almost have to work from home doing some of these internet leads after hours. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, there's no question. So let's have a little fun and talk as though when you started, there had to be something you wish you would have known that you certainly know now. What
Yeah.
advice would you give to a young Nicole?
well, one, you need to go work somewhere else first, right? I mean, always being the boss's daughter, it was just not a like, I think I got paid one summer to drive my brother to golf tournaments in my Corvette and file for a little bit in the office. That doesn't go well when then you wanna, like, sell cars or manage these people a few years. So and I think you don't have the empathy of what it's like to be an employee. I mean, I think I always came in with the view of what it's like to be an owner, and again, if you're gonna treat your people well, it's not just about making sure the customers are happy, it's making sure your employees are happy. So I'm really trying to do that differently with my kids, and I think you've gotta earn the right to be here. I mean, it is an opportunity, it's not a given. You do need to be good at what you're doing, and you need to treat people well. So I mean, that was my biggest takeaway, but I think some of the things that I've really loved is, like, focusing on communication and team building. I mean, we did a lot of that and it pays off and it grows. So, I mean, if you did it for a couple years and then stopped, we've kind of done it every year for at least the last 10 or 15 years. And I think it's why we have a team that hasn't that's still most people have been here 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, there's no question, and it really for someone who goes to so many dealerships, or I have over the years, it's kinda nice to be semi-retired now, and then you call me up and you go, "Oh, it's alright, Bruce has got it covered, I don't need you anymore," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's good. I'm glad I introduced you to Bruce." It is interesting though, as we've talked on so many topics in just a real rapid fire succession, is there anything that if you were to speak to the audience that you really feel like you'd like to leave them with today? What are some of the things that really are important in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think that communication with your team because when you look at like when there's a problem, what happens even with a customer, it's like lack of communication or miscommunication. So if you don't have open lines of communication and the right way to communicate with each other, and you do need some help on that, then I think you can just like be frustrated with each other or butting heads all the time. So really make sure that your team communicates well with each other and with their customers, but also with you. Like for me, that builds trust, right? When
Yeah,
I communicate with someone, then I can step back and let them do their thing, which is really what they want and not micromanage, but it takes that communication to have happen. And I also hope I mean, I think women in the car business are a huge asset, and if I look at it, like, you can be successful, you can have a family, you don't have to get in a plane and travel every other week, and maybe you work some longer hours, but it's also retail, you get to go see kids' games and stuff, so
yeah.
I hope there's more women that decide they wanna come in the car business because I do think that's not a great thing for our industry that there's not a lot of diversity at the top, at the dealer level, as much as I would hope there could be and should be.
Yeah, boy. Well, and you can be an advocate for that. So hopefully
Yeah.
we'll see how your career progresses. Nicole, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time today, and certainly just being in this broadcast with you. It makes me want to tell Bruce, look, I'm going to take the next visit. Uh, I feel like you owe it to me.
You still have to come visit us in Saugatuck, and I get to go hiking with you and your wife and my husband, and go probably be miles ahead of yeah, David, like, finding good friends in the business, I mean, that's also really fun, right? Like, find someone that you trust, and they can give you a different perspective, but they've been to other dealerships, they've seen you can get so single focused, it's just your store, so I am grateful for everything. The only reason we're doing well is because of yourself and all the people you introduced us to has really helped get where we need to be.
Well, it's nice to be just a small part of your success story.
Big part.
Uh, and so, I wanna say thank you to our audience for hanging with us today and, learning just a little bit more from Nicole Denoyer, the general manager of Denoyer Chevrolet in Holland, Michigan. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time here on Kain and Friends. Bye now.